Smokey Uncuffed. I'm Brian. On here we will talk about law enforcement, social media platforms, and just life. Today this one's probably going to fit in that last category. I've got a couple of things I wanted to talk about. I'm actually out here recording a little earlier than I usually do. I usually do this in the evening. But today, if you guys have never experienced Oklahoma weather, it's a treat. You guys really need to come down and get some of this, because you know, many parts of the nations, they have hurricanes, earthquakes. Oklahoma, Texas, southern Kansas, you get to deal with tornadoes. I'm not going to downplay hurricanes, earthquakes. The only difference I'll tell you is about a hurricane, you'll know a week in advance before it gets there. They're tracking it. They can tell you where landfall is going to be, when you need to get out. So, and that isn't always the case. It's sometimes more severe, and you've chose not to leave, and you find yourself in trouble. Tornadoes, however, you have got to be watching the weather right then, because you don't know when one's just going to drop out of the sky, across the road, on you, on the other side of you. They just drop down, and they comes in all shapes and sizes. That's the really interesting thing about them. So last week we had some pretty severe weather, and I was glued to the TV and watching a radar. That's another thing you'll find about people in Oklahoma, at least males in Oklahoma. You will pull up, I'd say 90-95% of their phones, they have some kind of active tracking radar on their phone. That's because we have to watch our own weather a lot of times. We lived out in the rural area, and when you lose TV, it's on you to read the radar and determine what the best course of action is. So last week I was watching it, and the storm trackers were down here. I'm watching TV, I'm watching the radar, and they call it. They think a tornado's forming. One of the storm trackers gets video of it, and there's probably an F2, F3. If you don't know what that is, that's the Fujita scale. It goes up to F5, F1 being small, F5 being monstrous. So they got one on the ground, and they tracked it for about 15-20 minutes. So just as luck would have it, there was a storm north of us, where my wife and I live, and it was coming towards us. It produced a tornado. So now we got one south of us, one north of us. But, you know, by the grace of God, the one north of us ended up turning and going northeast. The one south of us ended up turning and going straight east, so it missed us. Now, however, it did turn out to be an unfortunate event. It hit a small town south of us called Madill, Oklahoma, and 2 people actually did die in it. But that's just it. The tornado picked up when it got past us, cruising along there for a little bit, and then bam, it drops all of a sudden. And even though these people knew storms were coming, they just weren't prepared. They weren't in their safe spot, and this thing came down and got them. And I don't know how you avoid all those things. What I'm trying to say is you guys, if you haven't been around Oklahoma or southern Oklahoma, northern Texas during this time of year, during the spring, during tornado season, if you do, be sure you're around people that are used to being around it, because it can be hectic. People get really frightened of it. I don't. I find it pretty interesting. But back to my point, the reason I'm out here so early today and recording, it's a slight risk for tornadoes today. However, something you don't hear just a great deal, they're expecting 80-mile-an-hour straight line winds and baseball-size hail. Now, baseball-size hail. Baseball-size hail, if I can put it in words for you, it will total a car quickly. It will destroy the roof of your house. And honestly, if your roof has any kind of real damage, it could come through your roof. When you get up to softball size hail, those will come through your roof. And I'm talking, this is hail big enough, if you're caught out in it, it'll kill you if it hits you in the head. I mean, it's a big thing. No pun intended. So that's why I'm out here early today. I just wanted to beat the weather, because I want to be inside watching it all and making sure we're being as safe as possible. And like I say, I'm not downplaying anybody else's weather, because I understand people not wanting to be in the middle of it, because you're not going to catch me up in the northern part of the United States during the dead of winter, because I don't want to wake up one morning and find 15 foot of snow. To me, that's no fun. And tornadoes have always played a huge role in Oklahoma. I mean, outside the movie Twister, which was filmed all around Oklahoma, and parts of it were accurate, parts of it really weren't. But I mean, you know, you got to make it look good for the movies. In 1999, when I was just starting my career, I was in Oklahoma Highway Patrol Academy, and we got woke up in May of '99 and hurried into Moore, Oklahoma, and we all had to load in cars with different troopers, and we just took off, and you were recovering people from houses, searching for people, because a big F5 came right through Moore and did unbelievable devastation to it. If y'all get the chance, you might Google it. It's just, I think it was May 9th tornado, Moore, Oklahoma, and in 1999, May 9th, 1999, look at the Moore, Oklahoma tornado. This thing was enormous. I mean, the amount of devastation and the amount of time it stayed on the ground, it would completely wipe the ground clean of a house. You might see the foundation, maybe not. It may take it too. I mean, it was unbelievable, the size of this thing and the amount of damage it did. And people really don't understand that when you're looking at them. I mean, they are interesting to look at, but when they're that big, whoa, man, they'll clean the earth. In fact, I mean, I was talking about the movie Twister. You'll hear them talk about it. Somebody said something about F5, and they refer to it as the finger of God, because this thing is big and barrel shaped, and it just wipes things off. Now I'm going to jump into something completely different, like I usually do. You know, I just change directions in a heartbeat. So last night I was flipping through channels. It was getting late. It was getting about news time, and I happened to go by PBS. In Oklahoma, it's called OETA, and but it's the PBS station. And there was an independent lens on, and if you've never watched an independent lens on PBS, it's basically a biography, and they're very interesting. Usually they're very interesting. Well, I had about 20-30 minutes before the news started, so I thought, well, I'll watch and see what they're talking about today. So on this one, they were talking to Jim Allison. Jim Allison is a doctor and scientist, and in 1996 he was doing some research, and they said he was at Berkeley University, and he and some of his students or his lab assistants were in there, and so he thought he had a pretty good idea of how cancer tumors worked. So I'm just going to give you a brief summary of it, because I really encourage you to go watch it. It was unbelievable. But basically, in a nutshell, he put some tumors in some mice. He had the idea, and he hypothesized that when the tumor comes in and your immune system comes up to the tumor has a way, whenever it touches your immune system, to turn off your immune system's response. That's why your immune system can't fight it. That's what he hypothesized. So he got to thinking about it, and he thought, if I could make a receptor that would go in there and block that reaction by the tumor and allow the immune system to kick in and attack, it should work. So he developed this receptor. He injected the mice with this, and they were going on vacation. I think they were on Christmas break. And so they went away. And so somebody had come in and check on the mice. Well, a week or so into it, the mice had big tumors, and they thought, well, doesn't look like it's going to work. So they come back like a week after that, and they'd been checking on the mice and feeding them. But they come back a week after that, and the mice are completely cancer-free. And I may not be talking the time frame right. I mean, it may have been a little longer than that, but the point is they were cancer-free. They were gone. The tumors were nowhere to be found. And it was because it had reacted. They had sent these receptors in to block that reaction, and the immune system of the mice attacked the cancer, and it worked. It was amazing. So that was 1996. So I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist. I don't buy in a lot of stuff that people talk about out there, Bigfoot, a lot of different things like that. I don't buy into it. Now, this isn't as much conspiracy theory. You've always heard that there's probably a cure for cancer out there, and that the big drug companies just aren't letting it happen because there's no money in the cure. There's money in the medication. And to a point, that's right. So following this guy's, on the PBS show, it followed his journey. And it showed that he tried to get companies to pick this up. He needed the extra funding so he could do the proper trial on this thing and just kind of see how it reacted. And so he went to, all the big hitters, Pfizer, Bayer, they named several of them. Nobody was biting. All of them had the same feeling that they've seen this kind of therapy before, where it's autoimmune stuff, where it helps your immune system. This stuff helps your immune system kick in and fight. And they all just didn't believe it worked because the stuff they'd seen in the past didn't work well. So this clicked on for years. And this guy, of course, very frustrated, he finally finds an independent lab that will take this on and try to do a trial on it. And they find, okay, we're going to have more money to do some real funding on this and get it going. So they too struggled trying to find this. Along this time somewhere, they have a lady on there that had fought cancer, and she had fought it for years. They had tried everything, chemo, radiation, all different kinds of stuff, and nothing was working. And so her doctor had the foresight and knew of this study that was about to take place, and he knew of the drug. And so he asked, would you be interested in doing something like this that was still in the experimental phase of development? And she was at the point that she was at the end of the road. I mean, she had no other place to turn, so she said, well, absolutely. And you listen to her talk, and she goes, it was nothing like chemo. It was nothing like radiation. It was a shot in the thigh and an IV for a short time. And she said, like 30, 45 minutes, she was out of there. And that was the treatment. And so she clicked along, and I don't know the exact time frame, but the next time she went back for an MRI, the guy reading the MRI was confused. He said, what's happened? And they were all going, what? Well, tumor completely gone. She had a large brain tumor, and it was out. She had other kinds of tumors in her body and other kinds of cancer, gone. And it was all from one shot and one little IV. She said she didn't feel ill. She felt like she could get around and do things. I mean, not a great deal. She was already sick, so she didn't feel 100%, but she said, it was night and day to radiation. So anyway, that happened actually before the trial took off. So word got out about this. They got some information out, what it had done. So they had convinced somebody, I think it was Bayer, I don't remember. It was one of the larger, no, it wasn't Bayer. I don't know. It was one of the larger drug companies. And they got them to, okay, we're going to put some money to it. We'll try to do this. And so they started doing the study. Now remember, I told you he found this in 1996. Her case was like 2004, 2005. Finally, about 2006, they convinced somebody to give them the money to do the trial, because all the other companies weren't interested in doing it. And I mean, Pfizer even had something that was similar to it, but when their trial failed and didn't work perfectly like they wanted, they just abandoned it altogether because they already had other drugs that they could sell. And that's where the money's at. Money's in the drugs. It's not in this cure. So anyway, they keep on the road to the trial, and it clicks along. They decide they need to make it in excess of a year. They tried like 2 or 3 years. Long and short of it, 2011 clicks around, and this drug is approved. And now it doesn't work for everybody. It's not a 100% cure for everybody. But like any drug, everybody reacts differently to it. So the amazing thing is they were saying somewhere like between 30 and 40% it works perfectly for. Some it works marginally for. But you think about that. So let's just say 30%. Say there are 1 million people with cancer. 30% of them that have taken this, it cures completely. And from what they could tell, when it cured it, it didn't come back. Your immune system was then ready to fight it, so it couldn't come back. And so far, that's been the case on all the cases they've done. And there's been more than one. You'll see that on the show. There's been others after that lady that have done this, and it's worked amazing. So, but just think about that. People have cancer, and I'm just throwing numbers at you now. This isn't any factual stuff, but if you have 1 million people with cancer and you cure completely 30%, it's worth it to try. That's 300,000 people that no longer have to worry about cancer. It's gone. It just amazes me that the large companies are so worried about the almighty dollar that they weren't even going to put forth a little bit of help to see if they could get this figured out, because they know there's no real money in that for them. Now, granted, I'm sure that if you take this drug and it cures you, I'm sure you're paying a pretty penny. At the very least, your insurance is paying through the nose for it, but who cares? Money is just money. I mean, life is so much more precious than that, that why would you care how much it costs? You could tell me it's $1 million. I don't have $1 million, but if that's what it takes to cure me, do it. I'll work the rest of my life and we'll figure out how to pay for it. So absolutely, go check that out. That was on PBS. It was called Independent Lens with Jim Allison, Breakthrough, and that's what it's called. It is Breakthrough on Cancer or Cancer Treatment, but you need to look it up. I'm pretty sure you can just Google it and you can find it and watch it right off your computer. It's about 1.5 hours long. Man, it's very, very interesting. And one of the things they were interested in is this guy's a huge harmonica player, to the point that I think at one point he's on stage with Willie Nelson playing the harmonica. I mean, it was pretty interesting. The guy is very interesting. It is definitely worth a watch. Okay, now I'm going to, once again, take a turn. I'll talk a little bit about some social network stuff, something interesting that's came up here recently. You guys are aware of what TikTok is, and it's that company where you do 15 second to 1 minute videos. I don't remember if I mentioned this last time. I was clicking around on Social Blade, which is a analytics website. If y'all hadn't checked it out, socialblade.com. It's absolutely free. You put in the name of your YouTube channel. You click up to the left of the box and you can click it onto YouTube. You search for that YouTube channel. You click out beside them. It'll go to their page on Social Blade, and you can see how much money people are making, how many views each video is getting. It's just good analytics, so you can see how you can grow your channel better. So you can do that for YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and just recently they listed TikTok. The reason I find that interesting is because generally when Social Blade starts following them, it means they're fixing to be able to monetize. You're fixing to be able to make money from this content. And there are so many people making some very interesting content on TikTok. Now you think about this, if you get to actually monetize that, how much effort you putting forward for a 15-second video, even if it's a 1 minute video. You guys look at the fact of the matter on this podcast. Most of my stuff on my podcast lasts right at 30 minutes. That's just for me to sit here and talk. Then I go inside and edit it. I take out all the uhs, ands, and thes, and uhs. I take all that stuff out. Hopefully I don't take all that out, since I just did it about 15 times, but because I'm trying to prove a point. But so I go inside and I do all that editing. I take all that stuff out. Well, now I'm probably going to spend an hour in there editing. So it's an hour and a half I now have involved in this. Then I have to upload it. Well, the uploading doesn't take that long. It takes 5 minutes. My point being, if you could get to TikTok and start monetizing that stuff, and it takes 15 seconds, how many could you do in a day? You could put up 4 or 5 pieces of content. You could make this thing roll. Now, I don't know. I haven't heard anything official. I don't know exactly how they're going to monetize it. I doubt it's going to be on the same kind of platform or the same kind of setup as YouTube, where you have the ads inserted. Maybe it is. But we actually make our money on YouTube from AdSense, from Google itself. They are the ones that write you a check at the end of every month. I don't know if the ads on TikTok could be more like a podcast. When you start putting ads on here, the way it'll work, somebody will want to put an ad on your podcast, and I'll sit here and it'll be me talking, and I'll talk about the product. It won't be their official logo. It won't be their official saying or whatever they say, their official statement. It'll be, in my words, about this product. So maybe that's the route they'll take there on TikTok. Maybe not. Maybe it'll be putting ads in it just right before they start, kind of like YouTube. Or affiliate marketing. You may be able to use products on your little TikTok thing and then say, hey, check the links down below, I don't know. Point being, if it's something you're into, TikTok is something you're going on, keep it up. I do know you need at least 5 videos before Social Blade will recognize you on TikTok. I happen to have about 13 or 14 on there, and it's just some of my woodwork stuff. And all that is another way right now to drive more traffic to YouTube. This is just kind of something I've ran across recently and just figured I'd tell you all about it now, just because I think it's a great idea. If it's something you're interested in doing, creating on TikTok, keep it up. And, try to hone that craft, try to get it to where you're making some great content and you're getting 100,000 views on each video. And who knows, it may do it. And the other thing of it is, like I've mentioned before, if you get to where you're making content like that and you're getting the huge views, go ahead and start you a YouTube channel too. Do much the same thing on there. Make a 5-10 minute video. Man, it's off and running. And this is money out there for the taking. Okay, now we're going to get into some law enforcement. Boy, I had some feedback from my last podcast since I answered some questions about some laws. So I've already got more questions. One of them was a real simple one. On a divided 4-lane highway, I'm going to let you go ahead and answer this for yourself. If the speed limit's 70 and I'm in the inside lane doing 65, am I breaking the law? The answer is yes. The law for that is impeding the normal and reasonable flow of traffic. Most highways, most states have law written that if you're not passing somebody on a divided 4-lane, that you need to be in that right lane. That left lane is for traffic to pass the other traffic in and keep a good flow. Now then, do people do this? No, they don't. They get out and just hang out in that left lane. Now then, let's say they're doing 70 and the speed limit's 70. Is it still impeding traffic? Well, yes and no. What that law says, impeding the normal and reasonable flow of traffic. So with that said, if the majority of the traffic is doing 75, even though the speed limit is 70, and you're causing a traffic jam by doing the speed limit, you are impeding the normal and reasonable flow of traffic, which is in fact more dangerous than the ones running 5 miles an hour faster. Now then, is that the way it works? No. You'll get a couple behind you that were doing 75, and then you'll get the ones that just go ahead and pass you on the right, which is never a good idea, and they're doing 95. Okay, well there's the problem. The ones that are just flying are the ones that are a problem. But just a short answer to that, if you're doing less than the speed limit and you're in the inside lane, it is impeding the normal and reasonable flow of traffic. Now, if you're going down a 2-lane highway, is there impeding on it? There can be. Most roads, or a lot of roads, I'm not going to say most, a lot of roads, if the speed limit's 65, you might see a sign that says a minimum speed of 40 or something thereof. So if you go below that number, I mean, like an interstate system, there is a minimum speed on there. And if you get below that, well, now you're dangerous. I mean, it's flat dangerous for you to be in the right lane because traffic come flying up on you and you're doing a 30, 40 miles an hour difference. There's no way they can slow down, and they may not realize you're driving that slow until it's too late. So just a short answer for that is yes, if you're driving too slow in the inside lane, if you're driving lower than the speed limit, it is illegal. And right now, I got told the other day I better start doing this. I am not an expert per se. If you need some actual legal advice, you need to contact an attorney. They are the people that will be able to direct you in the correct course of action. I'm just telling you from my experiences as a trooper for 20 years, this is not to be used in a court of law. This isn't stuff that you should be using as true legal advice. Now then, this one's pretty funny. Somebody asked me this one, and I think they had read across the law and found out it was the truth, and were just wanting me to talk about it. Is it illegal to be driving down the road and you see your buddy out in the yard and you honk at him and then give it a big wave? Is it illegal to honk your horn? As a matter of fact, it is. The way the law is written in Oklahoma, that horn is to be utilized to clear crosswalks, and it may be intersections or something. It's been a while since I've read it, but yes, the truth of the matter is it is illegal to be driving around the road. And it's a funny one because have I ever stopped anybody for that? Well, no. I mean, how is that dangerous? I mean, what they're looking at is it could be startling to somebody, but as long as you have just a normal horn, it's just a honk. I mean, hey, what's up, honk honk? It's just a funny law. And there's a ton of these laws that are on the books that you can go through our old books, and I'm going to give you an example. I haven't looked, but years ago I did, and I haven't looked recently. But stuff like cattle rustling and horse theft, if you were a horse thief, up until 15, 20 years ago, still punishable by hanging. It's just because they haven't revised those laws, because it's not a real problem anymore. I mean, horses aren't the main transportation thing we use now, so they're not as valuable to us. But that's just kind of a true thing. You can look back at a lot of these laws and they haven't been updated, kind of like honking going down the road. Now then, if you get going down the road and you're honking and just making a horrible fit of things, sure, I mean, you can be stopped and talk to you about it, but just the honk and wave, no, I mean, come on. I can't imagine somebody being stopped for that. Yeah, okay, and the third and final question that I'm going to answer today, trailer lights. Okay, I feel like I've talked about this one just a little bit before, but the question was asked, so here it is. Somebody was saying they had a 16-foot flatbed and they're driving down the road and their trailer lights are not working. But you can clearly see the tail lights on the pickup. Is it still illegal? Yes, it is still illegal. Point being is that your trailer is sticking 16 feet further behind what the lights are showing. And so for depth perception at night, we're not going to see that trailer. And if they don't get slowed down in time to hit that trailer and they don't know it's there, yeah, there's where your problem is. So yes, you have to have trailer lights at all times when pulling a trailer that sticks out beyond the back of your pickup. I mean, that's kind of like the whole rule of you have something that extends past the bed of your truck, that's past the very end of your truck. If it goes longer, and I want to say it's 3 feet, been a while since I've looked at that one, you have to flag it. You have to put a red flag on it so they know that thing's sticking out further than what the back of your truck is. We just flat don't recommend that. I mean, if it's going to stick out the confines of your vehicle, you don't need to be hauling it. You need to put it on a trailer and have a trailer that's properly lit. Is that always stopped? A trailer with no trailer lights? No. But it is a reasonable one to stop. I have stopped a bunch of them, and especially at night. If I caught you at night without any trailer lights on, yeah, I'm going to stop you because somebody's going to end up hitting you. Now, on stuff like semis, absolutely. You stop semis because they're pulling a big box trailer usually, and you can't see anything past the back of that truck. And so when you're going down a dark, dark highway, you don't see anything until you're right on, oh my gosh, that's a semi. So yes, those are always stopped. Now the difference in that is semi stuff, when you're messing with commercial vehicles, that falls under federal law. And so it's federally enforced. So when you see those size and weight guys, or people call them DOT troopers, those guys often are enforcing federal law. They're enforcing the federal regulations on these commercial vehicles. So guys, like I said, I successfully jumped all over the map today. I went from tornadoes and bad weather to cancer research to laws, which I'm going to try to throw in the laws every time. As long as people keep asking me, I'll keep answering questions about them. Don't forget that independent study, that independent lens on PBS. It was called Independent Lens with Jim Allison, Breakthrough on Cancer. Excellent watch. I mean, I definitely recommend it. You'll just be enthralled by it because it just kind of drags you in. And the beauty of it is PBS has very limited commercials. So you can just sit there and be enthralled by it. So guys, that's going to be about it for this one. If you guys hadn't done so yet, please subscribe and go over to my website, www.smokeyuncuffed.com. You can listen to the podcast there, or just wherever you listen to podcasts, you'll be able to find this one. And don't forget about my YouTube. I've got Smokey Uncuffed on YouTube as well. You can watch the podcast because I am recording it for all of you that are here watching it today. And I also have that little woodwork channel, Smokey CNC Woodworks, which is actually my big channel. So guys, that's going to be it for today. If y'all haven't done so yet, just please subscribe, and I'll see y'all and hear y'all next time.